Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for tuning in today. Coming up on the show, we got some baseball talk. We got a little bit of hockey going on as well. That's coming up in today's ticket. We're going to be talking football, updating the best wins of the season, and we are going to be looking at the fight game as it is UFC 296 week. So we're going to be looking at that. As always, if you're listening in podcast form, rate, review, subscribe wherever you can. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. All of that stuff really does help. As always, find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email this show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Okay, that's all that's coming up. Let's get into it. Let's talk some baseball. So, with the news that Shohei Ohtani is on his way to the LA Dodgers for $700 million over 10 years. Now, a lot of it is being deferred, but I thought, you know what, let's look and see because that's $70 million a year, quick math. What kind of team could you build for $70 million a season? And now, I had a couple of rules on this. I didn't want to go too heavy on just players on rookie contracts and stuff like that. There's a lot of pre-arb on here, but if I only went free agent contracts, then everyone's old. So I tried to have a bit of a mix. So, like, if you just want everyone on a rookie contract, it's basically the Orioles. So wanted to do a bit of a mix here, but let's just see. Now, do want to state, probably not trading this whole team for Shohei Ohtani, although you'd think about it. I'll just put it out there, because I think we have put together a pretty good team on this one. So let's get into it. Our starting catcher is Adley Rutschman. Like I said, I didn't want to use all rookie contracts, but I would give myself one, and I think he's probably the best on one of those right now, at a position where it's kind of tough to find a whole lot of greatness out there. So I'm taking Adley Rutschman as my catcher. Christian Betancourt, by the way, is my backup catcher at $1.5 million. My infield, Matt Carpenter at first at 5.5 mil, Orlando Arcia at second at $2 million, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. at 3.1. I know he's a corner outfielder now, but in the video games you can play him at third base, so screw you. I'm playing him at third base. And a shortstop is Willie Castro at $1.8 million. So I feel like with this infield that we've been able to put together, obviously Rutschman is the star. You got Lourdes, who can obviously hit in some big spots. Matt Carpenter has shown some flashes at times, albeit like some flashes of not greatness as well. And Arcia and Castro, I think, are fine. My outfield is where this team shines. Outfield spot number one, I'm putting Adolis Garcia at $747 million. $747,000. Guy won ALCS MVP, might have won World Series MVP if he doesn't get hurt. An absolute bomber in the outfield. At center field, Kyle Tucker, he is generally a right fielder, but he'd get used to it. He comes in at $5 million. And then Ronald Acuna Jr. at $12.5 million. Going through this exercise, shame on owners, because there are so many talented players just not getting paid in Major League Baseball right now. And then a bunch of them really do get paid. Like, there is such a mix of wildly underpaid and wildly overpaid in the sport of baseball right now. All these numbers coming from Spotrac, by the way. So if I got any of them wrong, deal with it. But that is what I'm going with there. And then my bench, we already talked about Betancourt at $1.5 million. A lot of guys on veteran minimums. We'll get to them in a sec. First, it's Yuli Gurriel at 1.25. Real strong bat off of the bench. Big Daniel Vogelback at $1 million. Just a good character guy. And then some players on veteran minimums. You got the J-Hay kid, Jason Hayward. He's going to be on any team I ever tried to build. You have Mike Moustakas at $720,000 as well. And Jurickson Profar can play outfield, can play infield, so I feel like I get some versatility with that. So you know what? My lineup, pretty good. Like, we got some pop in the middle of this order. We got a little bit of speed. We got some real good bats coming off of the bench that we can kind of sub in as games go along. We have some versatility. I think we've put together a pretty good squad on the $70 million team. Now let's go to the pitching staff, where I shine. First, at $1 million, it's Spencer Strider. Again, probably not fair, but he's making $1 million on this Braves team, so I'm taking him. Hunter Green at $3.3 million. Again, the flamethrower for the Cincinnati Reds. We're taking Joe Ross as kind of our veteran arm in the rotation at $1.75 million. Maybe the best pitcher in the National League for this year anyway, until Shohei starts pitching. Sandy Alcantara at $9.3 million. Gonna just lock that one in. And Logan Webb at $8 million. So a couple guys who we spend on a little bit more. We were able to save quite a bit going with vet mins on the bench with our starters, or with our bats, sorry. But this starting rotation, I'll put that up against almost any in baseball. I feel like we've built a real juggernaut here. In our bullpen, our closer is Emmanuel Clase at $1.5 million. Our setup guys are Tyler Matzik and Felix Bautista. Matzik is at $1.9 million. Bautista is at $1 million. So we've really... I think you can turn these games into 6-inning games really, really quickly. But then if something does happen to stumble, we have Jorge Lopez coming out of the bullpen at $2 million. Sean Newcomb at $1 million. And then a couple of guys who I'm familiar with from the Blue Jays, Ryan Borucki at $1.6 million and Adam Simber at $1.65 million. So I can see why owners want to be cheap about things, because we just, for $70 million put together a pretty good team, and that would be like the fifth smallest payroll in baseball right now. So would you trade this whole team for Shohei Ohtani? Probably not. Acuna being on there, Acuna and Strider and Alcantara, like you could make a case that the Dodgers would make a 26-for-1 trade for Shohei Ohtani in this. But it really does show what you can get for that monstrous contract. And again, a lot of it's being deferred. I understand that. But just a fun exercise to see what you could get for $70 million a season. In terms of actual baseball news, that there wasn't a ton yesterday. Rowdy Tellez goes to the Pirates. It's kind of fun when the Pirates are fun, so I hope that they start to figure things out a little bit. It sounds like the Dodgers are going to make a big move to acquire Tyler Glass now in a big trade with Tampa Bay. This was kind of the thing, and this is why the deferring of the Shohei money is so important. This was not a team that didn't have issues, right? Like, talking about adding him to a juggernaut is true, but they got bounced in the playoffs. They had real starting pitching depth issues a season ago. They need to address that, and they are going out and doing that now with Glass now. It just makes this team silly good going into next year. We'll see what the Yamamoto stuff brings. Again, I'm not overly confident the Blue Jays are going to make that move, but it's been quiet on that front and quiet on the Bellinger front so far today. All right, that is the baseball talk. Let's get into the world of football now. All right, a couple weeks ago, we did the best wins of the season for each team. In the last couple of weeks, we've had some new ones enter the fold, so we're going to let you know which teams have got their best win in the last couple of weeks, and finally going to rank them, just our podium, 1, 2, and 3 of the best wins of the season. You'll find out why here in a second. San Francisco has got their best win of the year in the last couple of weeks. That 42-19 domination of Philadelphia really established them as probably in a tier of their own. So I would say that San Francisco is the number one team in all the land, and the win that establishes that was against Philadelphia. So you'll take that as their biggest win of the season. I think Green Bay got their biggest win of the year, 27-19 over Kansas City. Now, they end up blowing it against the Giants the next week, but you do feel coming out of that game that Green Bay has an opportunity to make the playoffs and is kind of a fun team now. So that was another one where it felt like they kind of leveled up a little bit, so they get that for the best win of the year. Chicago, 28-13 over Detroit. They've only had 5 to pick from, but that's a legitimate win against a semi-legitimate team. So we'll give the Bears credit on that one. Buffalo with a 20-17 win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Like that they have kind of been hovering around. They're still for real for a bit, but this really established, like, okay, Buffalo's got something going on here right now with that win. Another one over the Eagles. Dallas, 33-13 over Philadelphia. So much talk about, well, who's Dallas beat? What are the Cowboys, really? Well, they just beat the Eagles. And they have been playing so well for a while that this kind of, I think, vindicated a lot of that when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. Tennessee got their biggest win of the year, 28-27 over Miami, and the Giants with their biggest win of the season, 24-22 over the Green Bay Packers. And so now we look at the best wins of the offseason, and the reason why I'm doing this now is because I think all three of them have come in the last couple of weeks. The best wins of the season. I think all three of them have come in the last couple of weeks, which makes sense. It's getting down to the games that are super important, so a win now means more than wins before. But we had kind of talked when we did the best win exercise a couple of weeks ago that kind of no one's beat anybody, right? Like the Eagles had only one loss at the time. That was against the Jets. So that one doesn't really count. Cincinnati, like they got a big win against San Francisco, but then they get the quarterback being hurt. And so that kind of takes away from that big win. So, but now like you're starting to see things being established. And so the third best win of the season is Dallas's win over Philadelphia. Number 2 is Buffalo's win over Kansas City. And number 1 is San Francisco's win over Philly. I think that's the biggest win because it, again, establishes them as the team to beat right now in the NFL. And Dallas's win puts them in the conversation for best team in the league. And Buffalo puts them back in this is a team that is for real conversation. And so the reason I wanted to do this today is you look at specifically the Buffalo win and the Dallas win, because we all knew San Francisco was good, right? Like we had a pretty good indication that was the case. You look at Buffalo and you look at Dallas. Those were two teams that I think the most we heard, who they beat. Who have they beaten? But now Buffalo has beat Miami and they've beat Kansas City. Dallas has hung with Philadelphia twice, beat them once. I think we have to stop with the they can't beat good teams thing, because they just did. Like they literally did. And so now that has kind of chipped away one real big layer of any kind of argument against these teams being able to make a legitimate run. I'd say Dallas more than Buffalo. There's still, I think, some real flaws with Buffalo, but for Dallas, they looked not great against San Francisco. So has pretty much everybody, with the exception of a 3-week stint where they just kind of lost it a little bit. They had a bit of a speed wobble, but they are back on track right now. It's why I did the exercise to begin with. I need to hear something other than, who have they beat? For Dallas, because they have played so well, both offensively and defensively. And Buffalo has played really, really well the last couple of weeks. And there's been some talk about the coach, warranted, I would say. But I think you look at both of these teams now as having established themselves as real contenders in the NFL over the last couple of weeks. So there are your best wins of the season so far. It is a fight week, UFC 296 coming up this weekend. Let's continue the fight talk now. Earlier this week, we went over the biggest storylines of the weekend for UFC 296, but this is a pretty deep card. So today we're going to take a look at the fighters who aren't in the championship bouts that you should be paying attention to this weekend. And now this first one is kind of cheating a little bit, but it's a fight that I think really has real stakes, and it's not one of the 2 title bouts, so it should get mentioned here. It's Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So yes, I mentioned them in the big storyline, and now they're getting this is also like the underappreciated fights, but it's my show, so I can do that. Rakhmonov, he's undefeated. He's only been to the 3rd round in 2 fights, one being the most recent one. He is fighting a recognizable name. He has an opportunity to fight on the same card as the championship fight. It really does seem like everything is being set up for, at the end of the night, him standing face-to-face with either Leon Edwards or Colby Covington with the next title shot in line. It does feel like the UFC is really just like every arrow, every flag pointing like, hey, pay attention. This dude right here, this is the guy. This is the guy you want to be paying attention to. They are waving everything to be like, hey, this is the next one. We believe this is the guy. Now he has to go in there and perform. Going up against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who is a really difficult guy to look good against. That is the one thing about this. This is not a squash match. Like, Rakhmonov is probably going to win this one relatively easily. But Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is really difficult to just style on. And so I don't think this looks like he's just suplexing him around and all of that. I think that this is going to be a real legitimate test. The thing with Wonderboy, he's kind of lost all of his big fights lately. He's losses to Muhammad and to Gilbert Burns. He's 4-4 since losing in a welterweight title bout to Tyron Woodley. He just kind of feels like he is there. But this is a legitimate name that Rachmanov has a chance to kind of make his name off of. I'm not high on this Pimblett Tony Ferguson fight. I'm over it with Paddy Pimblett. And Tony Ferguson, congratulations on surviving Hell Week with David Goggins, but cardio wasn't the issue to begin with. So not going to really focus on that one. But Vicente Luque against Ian Machado Gary is one that I do think deserves a lot of consideration right now. Luque, I still think there's something there. He's 32 years old, but it seems like all the big fights he's got, he's lost. And so this is a chance to kind of slay that dragon. He is a very difficult test. He is a fun fighter to watch. And I think he is someone who, not that he deserves to be in title contention or anything like that, but this is absolutely a fighter who deserves to be kind of mentioned in the, and this is a guy who, if he goes on a run, could absolutely fight for a title. On the other side, Ian Machado Gary is a kind of, he's still a prospect. He is a prospect who doesn't seem like, it seems like a lot of the hype has buzzed down. And a lot of it is, the shtick is to Wish.com Conor McGregor. And he beat Neil Magny, but not in a way that was like, oh man, watch out, this guy is coming. It was a good win, and like we've said about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Magny's a tough guy to look good against, but that fight was there for Gary to really make a statement, and he didn't. And so a lot of the hype has kind of died down, and I think that this is a smart bit of matchmaking to get Luque in a spot where, like, if he wins, this is a legitimate win, and one of the more legitimate of his career, quite frankly, and it gives him an opportunity now to move up in the rankings and get he's probably a fight away from being a fight away from a title shot, but this gets him in that conversation. And if Gary wins, I think Luque's going to drag a fun fight out of him, and this will kind of put him back on the map of, okay, this is a prospect we still should be paying attention to. And so I think it's a smart bit of matchmaking. Couple on the prelims, Irene Aldana looking to bounce back after a loss to Amanda Nunes. Kind of shows how jobbed Vancouver got, where this fighter was in the main event last fight, and she loses, and now she's in the middle of the prelims. Not even feature prelim or anything like that, going from main event to the prelims. Kind of shows where that main event was at, right? But we'll see how she bounces back after getting just shit pumped by Amanda Nunes. And Andre Fili on the undercard. Guy's been around for a long time, pro since 2009. If you followed my career, you know I'm a big fan, or was a big fan, of the Sherdog Radio Network, and they put a lot of focus on Taichi Palace fights, as they had a thing with them back in the day, and Fili was one of the main fighters on that. So it's just neat for me to see Andre Touchy Fili coming in for this opportunity here. So, a lot of good fights to watch this weekend coming up at UFC 296. All right, let's close the show today with today's ticket. We've had some big tickets in the football world and some tough losses in the non-football world. We'll try to get back tonight. We're chasing the dragon a little bit. We got 5 games. We will start in the association. The Indiana Pacers +6 against the Milwaukee Bucks. These two teams played in the in-season tournament and had an opportunity to really get a good feel. Pacers end up winning that game. I think they are going to, pardon the pun, keep pace with the Milwaukee Bucks. So I think that you might want to sprinkle a little bit on a money line play there with Indiana, but Pacers +6 against the Bucks, I don't mind. In the NHL, we got 4 games tonight. Colorado against Buffalo. I think Colorado, it seems like they figured out what was ailing them against the Flames. I think they get back on track and continue to get back on track with a win over Buffalo at -1.5. Boston taking on the Devils. I think anytime you can get Boston as an underdog, you just kind of take that. So I'm going Boston +106 on the money line. Ducks taking on the Islanders. New York is not a team that blows teams out, and the Islanders, I think, can kind of hang around in this spot. So I'm going Anaheim +1.5 against the Islanders, and the Pittsburgh Penguins -1.5 against Montreal. I think the Habs are kind of coming back down to earth a little bit, and I think Pittsburgh, while not a dominant team by any stretch, I think can pick up a win by a couple tonight, -1.5 goals. So, Pacers +6 against the Bucks, Avalanche -1.5 goals against the Sabres, Boston +106 against New Jersey Devils, Anaheim +1.5 against the Islanders, and Pittsburgh -1.5 goals against Montreal. That is today's ticket. And that is today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, if you're listening in podcast form, leave a rating and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment as well. If there's anything I said today that you agree with or disagree with, by all means, let me know. Coming up on the show tomorrow, we are looking at our NFL power rankings. Also going to look at other MMA news as we get ready for UFC 296. The welterweights are on display, so we're going to look at one of the better ones of all time in Robbie Lawler with the Legacy look. Leading up to Friday, where we're going to have the full UFC preview, we are going to also be having your full NFL preview. So Friday is going to be a big show for a Fights in Football Friday. Once again, follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein, twitch.tv/primetimepk, and you can email the show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will talk to all of you tomorrow.